welcome to another week's episode of Not D&D. I'm your host, Jessica, and I'm very excited because this week we have with us one half of Dinoberry Press, Nevyn. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey there, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about games and stuff.
Awesome. There is a quick warning I have at the beginning of this this show, though, because you may have noticed by the title of the video you're watching or the stream you're listening to, there will be some swear words in this podcast. So if swear words are not suitable for you for whatever reason, this may not be the podcast or the episode to watch and listen to. But if you're fine with that, you'll be very interested to hear that today we'll be talking about the game You're in Space and Everything is Fucked, which I thought was just such a wonderful title. Possibly,
Thank you.
yes. So we'll be talking about your game, which is currently live on Kickstarter now.
Yes.
So if while we're chatting, people, you want to go and have a look, I think it's got like 10 more days at the time of recording.
Yeah, 10 days.
Okay, so you've got just over a week to go check it out. But if you want to check it out whilst we're talking, have a look there. The link's just there, or in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast. But before we get into talking about being in space and terrible, terrible things happening to us, I'd love to talk a little bit about you, Nevyn, and Dinoberry Press. So what's your journey been like with role-playing games? Like, what was the first game you remember playing?
First game I ever played, as far as like RPGs and stuff like that goes, was, as is the case for most people, I'm sure, an edition of the game that shall not be named, the 3.5th edition.
Okay, the classic Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
Yes. You said it, so I didn't have to.
Yes.
Started with that back in like early college, like my freshman year. Played it for a couple of years and then kind of like fell off of RPGs for a while. And then years and years pass and the first Zine Quest happens.
Okay.
And that, I'd been like playing, Crit Roll and all that stuff, got me and some friends back into D&D. Then Zine Quest happened and I was like, oh, games can be other things? This kind of rules.
Amazing.
Blew my mind. Shot the doors right open, and I have been designing and playing all sorts of weird little games since then.
Perfect. So that led to Dinoberry Press.
Yes.
Coming into existence. Tell us a little bit about Dinoberry Press. How did that come about? And
so we did. I did Gun and Slinger back in 2020 or 2021. We kickstarted that and we had no real idea of it like becoming a business or anything like that. It was just like, I want to make this game. I want to make it happen.
Cool.
I think I can make it happen. So let's do this. We did. And my wife Jam ended up getting pulled in to help out with like finishing up layout. There was a lot of crunching on that project, unfortunately. But she came in and helped finish up the layout. And we realized that, despite the rough circumstances of that project and executing it, we both worked really well together. And she was really, really good at layout. And it kind of just naturally flowed into, well, let's see what else we can make together. Let's work on more projects. And we spent a couple of years making sure we had our ideas together and knew what we wanted to do. And partway through last year, we actually like formalized and created the business and got the logo and the website and all that stuff up. So, the things we released before 22 were like, they're technically part of the Dinoberry Press canon. But officially things after there are Dinoberry Press.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on getting it going and making it be a thing. And also congratulations on the Kickstarter as well. Because you are fully funded, like I think twice over at the moment.
Almost. We're almost twice over. The original goal was 28K. We're at 44 right now. So we're pretty much there. I think 60-ish is technically the number we need to get to double it, but we're close. I think it can happen.
I think so, definitely, when you got like 10 days left to go. And anyway, let's get into it and talk about the game, because I think I either saw the game or you contacted me, but I saw the title and I was like, immediately, yes, please come on the show, because this is one of those great games where the title is so clear about the tone, about the setting, about just what we're going to be playing. It's really clear. You're in space and everything is fucked. A gruesome sci-fi horror RPG. Amazing. Excellent title. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious about what the game is, but could you give us a little like intro elevator pitch to explain the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So if it wasn't obvious, You're in Space and Everything's Fucked is my like personal terrifying tribute slash love letter to like my favorite genre of all time, sci-fi survival horror. It's like deeply inspired specifically by the video game side of things. So Dead Space, System Shock 2, Aliens, like all that really, really good classic, like retro-futurist, weird sci-fi horror. It really leans into the horror side of things, like all throughout this game text. I'm saying lean into the horror, try and scare your players, like keep things secret, surprise them, to the point where there's actually 2 separate books, which we have not done before. I mean, it's not unheard of in RPGs, obviously.
Sure.
But we've essentially got the GM book and the player book. Some of the info is repeated between both, but the idea is the GM reads the GM book, the player reads the player book, and we specifically want you to keep that information separate so that you can scare the crap out of people at the table.
I love when game books do that. I think it's really great because I think sometimes even if you're like running a new game for your friends and you've got the book and you want to send them just the PDF, it's so handy to be able to say, you can read everything in this PDF and it's going to be fine. Otherwise, you're going to like share the PDF with them and it's like, don't read this bit because it'll ruin everything. So I think it's a fantastic idea. I love seeing games do that.
It's really fun. I'm glad that we were able to make it happen. It definitely adds like a weird amount of overhead to production to do something like that, which, you know, is why people don't do it in the indie space. Like, it's perfectly reasonable to not do.
Yes.
But it's fun. It's really fun to be able to do that and to like emphasize that horror aspect of the game in that way.
Definitely. And so, as you say, horror aspect of the game as well. Safety tools are always really important in like any tabletop RPG, especially in horror, obviously. And you talked about kind of lines and veils at the beginning and also script change, which is really great. I'm quite familiar with lines and veils, but I wasn't as familiar with script change until I read this book. So could you talk to us a bit about script change and why you decided to use it and reference it in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So lines and veils and X card, everyone knows those. They're classics, they're staples, they work, and they're straightforward. A script change by Bo Yeager Sheldon is maybe my favorite safety tool of all time. It's very versatile. It has a lot of things going on with it. And essentially what it does is it frames things at the table as if you're watching a TV show or a movie, and it gives you certain tools like pause, rewind, fast forward, skip. And the way that those tools work, it's very simple. Like I say pause. I am pausing this game real quick so that we can talk about what happened. I don't like the thing that just happened in the story. I want to rewind it. I don't want to show these things on screen. I want to fast forward and fade to black and just skip past it. And very importantly for horror, it also has frame by frame or slow motion, basically, which is the key to like slow things down and just talk through it very carefully before returning to like a really quick mode of play. This is like my 3rd or 4th time using it. I adore this tool. I like to run my games framed as a TV show, and I design my games and instruct people who are playing them to frame them as a TV show or like a game or a movie. So it's a natural fit for like almost all the stuff that I design. Doubly so here because it emphasizes like this is a video game inspired thing. And it's a great fit. It works awesome.
It sounds really great. And like I say, I'm not as familiar with it, but I saw it when I was in the book and I was like, oh, that sounds really great as a tool. So thanks so much for sharing it with us.
Yeah, highly recommend everyone check it out.
Let's dig into the game a little bit more. So the setting, I think all your references, I'm like, and the title, I'm like, yeah, I get what this game's going to be. I'm going to be running around screaming on a spaceship and terrible things are going to be happening.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. I love in this game that you kind of create the rooms and the space station as you go in the game. So I think that makes it, as a GM, you're not going to have to spend hours like researching or prepping stuff. You can kind of just bring it to the table. Could you talk us through how you create the rooms and how that works? How do you build the space station?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to be able to pick up a game and run it. So I wanted You're in Space to be a low to no prep game, but still have that expandability to be like, if you want to plan a bunch of stuff out ahead of time, you can, and here's how.
Sure.
So the way the like flow works when you're playing this game is the struggler is in a room and they want to go to the next one. So they go up, they hit the button, they open the door, and then the GM rolls some dice on a table to figure out how big the room is, how many doors it's got, if there are any monsters in there, or like what kind of threat is in that room, as well as like what type of room it is and like some extra flavor for the room. Like you can roll to have a big mess hall that is covered with gore, or a tiny storage closet with no power and 3 monsters in it. And it's just you roll some dice, you move your mice, it just happens. It's fantastic. And we have some tools that I'm currently working on as well to streamline that process. So you can just click a button and get a room.
Nice.
And I mean, yeah, it's a really fun pacing mechanism. It can be a little clunky when you're getting started because it's rolling on tables. But once you've done that a bit, you kind of intuit how things are going and you get more comfortable and, you know, kind of freely adjust things and really intuit how things are shaping out in each of the rooms. It ends up being really interesting because as you're generating, you kind of take clues from the room you were just in or the surrounding rooms to figure out extra details for this one that you're in. Like, what does a bunk in the medical station look like compared to the bunk in the military floor of the ship? Like, how do those things differ? And that random generation extends to other things in the game too, like the monsters.
Amazing. I think we definitely have to talk about the monsters. But I'm going to take us back because I got excited and jumped ahead. And I haven't even talked about the basic mechanics of the game, which I should really have started with. So this is a D6 dice pool system, which I love. Huge fan of it. We love it at EA and Publishing. Awfully Cheerful Engine, What's Old is New, also D6 dice pool system. So I'm always a big fan of it. But yeah, if you could talk us through how the game mechanically works, like the stats and the wounds and the luck and all that awesome stuff. So how do we actually play the game?
Yeah, so play is super simple. It's pretty freeform and flexible, as most of the things I make are. So baseline, your character, you got 2 stats, tech and flesh. Those stats have points. So like I've got a 1 in tech and a 1 in flesh. Great. That tells me that I'm average across the board. Or I've got 2 in flesh, none in tech. I'm terrible with technology, but I'm big and beefy, right? Say you want to do something, you start building a dice pool. That dice pool starts with 1 die. Then if one of those stats is relevant, you add to it. Then you start talking about advantages and disadvantages, which are basically advantages add extra dice, disadvantages take dice away. There's no cap, there's no lowest. You can go down to 0 dice, in which case you roll 2 and take the worst result. But it is like additive and subtractive. And then once you've got your pool, you roll some dice, you see what happens. You're looking for results of 5 and 6. Those count as hits. 1 hit means you succeed in doing the things, but something bad happens. 2 hits means, great, you did it. No consequences, at least not right now. Beyond that, characters have wounds, will, and luck. Wounds is your HP. The 3rd one you get kills you.
Oh gosh, it's quite
Yeah,
extreme then.
it's a very brutal game.
Mhm.
But don't worry, we have save points. You come back to life, it's fine.
I know, I was
We'll
gonna talk
get
about
there.
that. Yeah, that was very cool when I saw
um,
that. But yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I just want to talk real quick. I'm really happy with how the wounds worked out in this game.
Mhm.
In the text, I specifically say like make these worse as you go. Like get nasty
Okay.
with them.
All
The
right.
first one should be like relatively, I mean, it's going to be bad because it's a wound,
Yeah, sure.
but
It's not
it
great.
shouldn't. It's not going to kill you.
Mhm.
A broken leg or something like that.
Wow, that's
Bad.
pretty extreme for one. I was
It
thinking, I was
is
like,
pretty.
maybe a grade. You're
It
like, break
it
their
is
legs
pretty. It
immediately.
is pretty extreme, but it's not number two, which I say to do some worse things with. I'm not going to go into
Okay.
details here.
All right. How do
um,
we escalate from a broken leg then?
yeah,
No, tell
it
me.
it just gets worse, and then the third one should be an absolutely gross death. I really tell people to lean into the body horror and like the gore with this
Okay, so
game.
like your stomach splits open and all your intestines like pour out
Yeah,
like these
yeah,
kind of little.
yeah. I
Okay,
think
oh, I
I
can do
think I
that.
say
Yeah,
like
I'm
a
there.
face melted is the example I give.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
you're dying. Make it a show.
Okay,
Um,
sure.
I'm specifically there. I'm specifically pulling from like anyone who's played Dead Space will know what I'm
Uh-huh.
pulling from with
Yeah.
these. Like it's
Hmm.
it's nasty. But I still in that line of text, I still say
Hmm.
like, hey, keep your safety tools in mind. If
Yes, yeah.
someone doesn't want to have a face being melted described, do something else or
Yeah,
fake black. Like it's fine.
yeah.
Safety first at the table.
Of course,
Um,
yeah.
and then there's will and luck, which are points that you can spend to avoid having to roll dice. Will is like your character willing something to happen, like
Okay.
mentally or physically, like they are making it happen. And luck is good old fashioned Deus Ex Machina. You just get lucky and
Okay.
something great happens. Um, there's an XP system too. There's stuff for dying and like getting back to
Hmm.
your body. It's very souls like in that way.
Hmm.
It's like when you die, almost all of your stuff gets left where you died, and you have to get back to it to get it all back.
Oh, okay, cool. So it's like because you mentioned the save point, which I thought was so fun when I was reading through
Mhm.
the demo. By the way, there is a free demo version of this game on the
Yes.
Kickstarter page, so that you can download now. So if you go to the Kickstarter page, you can see the links for it there, and that was what I've been reading through beforehand. That's what I'm referencing.
Mhm.
If you're like,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
she talking about? It's still on Kickstarter. It doesn't exist. It kind of does. So, but yeah, so I love the save point area. So yeah, could you talk us through the save point? Because that was just really
Yeah.
interesting to me.
Save points are a video game staple, and
Mhm,
I knew that I wanted this to be a gruesome, difficult video game where you died a lot. Video
mhm.
game, tabletop game,
Yes,
where you died a
inspired by
lot.
video games, yeah.
Yes. And I thought, well, how can I do that?
Mhm,
In most tabletop games, your character dies and they're dead. That's it.
yeah, and that's
Uh,
not as fun because then you're just sat at the table watching your friends play a game.
yeah, and it wouldn't be fun in a game where you die in 3 hits either.
Yeah,
You could definitely play it like that, and I bet
mhm,
if everyone's playing it like that and is on board, it'd be pretty tight.
sure.
But I digress.
Mhm,
Um, the save points are very much like they are scattered throughout the map. You can generate a room with them. The struggler can turn a room into one, and the station, which is the GM, can kind of just like choose where to put them.
mhm,
Um, and it is as simple as it sounds. When you die, you come back at a save point, the last one that you used.
mhm.
Um, in the demo, there's nothing more to it, but in the final version of the game, there is a set of tables and steps that like
Okay.
illustrate how time passes and things get weirder as you die. So the more you
Okay.
die, the more fucked up stuff gets.
So there's still consequences even though you respawn. It's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't weightless. Time still passes and things get weird. Um I think an example is that like a room can just move to a different place on the map.
Sure.
You can lose power, things can turn upside down. Um there's a couple of like set piece style moments limited to dying.
Mhm.
So like you're only going to see all the content in this game if you die a bunch. It's great.
Well, luckily it sounds like the kind of game where that will just happen. So,
I
yeah.
think it'll happen a few times for most people. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, you can don't, you're gonna die a lot, but you can get a bit attached to your characters because there are save points, which is awesome to hear. Speaking about character creation. So we kind of talked a little bit about it already. So all characters will start with their two stats that you talked about, flesh and tech. And flesh, wonderful choice of word again. But what else goes into character creation?
Character creation, super simple, straightforward. You've got your name, your pronouns, your background, which is like your job that you had before this, or like what you did. Like you pull on your background to get advantages or disadvantages during play.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a defining. Yeah, it's one of the defining pieces of history for the character. You've got how they look. And then you've got their unique tool, which is a generated unique weapon specific to your character.
Nice.
And then you roll to see like what items you start with. And that's your character. That's it.
Nice and simple. So you can just get playing straight away. So this really is a game that it struck me as a game that you could just take off the shelf, bring to the table, not have had to do a whole lot of prep or learning of the rules in advance. You can create your characters at the table. And like you said, the station, the GM of the game can just build it as you go. So you're not going to have to sit there and do loads of homework, which is, that appeals hugely to me because I love playing games, but sometimes I just don't make the time to prep and stuff. So having the option to not need to do that is, great.
The killer of campaigns is having to prep things.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we talked about how you can generate things on the fly, and you mentioned how monsters are similar to creating the space station, that you can do it via tables and kind of generate them that way. Please tell me about all the terrible monsters that are going to come and kill me in this game.
Well, all the terrible monsters that are gonna come and kill you are gonna be randomly generated, or procedurally, I guess, if we're gonna worry about semantics.
Okay, sure.
It is a process. It is a set of tables that you roll on to figure out its HP, how many limbs it has, like its size, its general vibe. Like, is this a mound of metal and flesh, or is this a weird bug thing? Any sort of like extra features it has, and importantly, its weak point. Yet another instance of me pulling from my favorite horror game of all time, Dead Space. The monsters are weird, and you want to aim for certain parts of them. This is another reason that I try and keep the info for the GM and the player separate. Because as you're playing, so when it's time to generate a monster, first you roll 2 dice and you get like a number. So let's say we got 5. Then we actually roll on these tables to generate the monster. And that is monster number 5. It will always be monster number 5 for the rest of our game. Next time I roll those 2d6 again. And if I get a 5, I know that this is the monster that's going to show up again. If I get a different number, I generate a new monster and assign it to that. So as you play, you get more and more, you get a wider variety of monsters that are introduced at further intervals. That kind of mimics the pacing of introducing new little freaks in a video game. And it also allows the struggler players time to be exposed to monsters and like take their own notes on them. As they like aim for certain parts, they go like, okay, I tried its arm last time and that wasn't its weak point. So now I'm going to go for its chest and we're going to see what happens. And then when they know the weak point, they go, boom, got it. Weird little dude with 8 arms, weak point, chest, got it. And moving forward, they know to go right for that.
Amazing. So they're like tactically trying to play a game and write their own monster manual as they go for it.
Exactly.
Or playing like a terrifying game of Clue or something.
Yes.
Crossing off the options.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite features of like playing this at the table is like watching players experiment with these monsters, or like even come up with names for them, because I don't name them when I play at the table, but players have come up with names for them themselves, and it is a great time.
That must be great. Yeah, it reminds me of like in zombie films, if you used to call it a zombie, there was like the biters, the walkers, the sickos or something. You're like, just call it a zombie.
Yeah.
I imagine players do fun things like that. They're like, obviously it's this, and they're like, no, we're gonna call it that.
Yeah, absolutely. There are also boss monsters, which are randomly generated
Okay.
monsters with more HP and like another extra feature that's like specifically designed.
Okay.
And each of those boss monsters can only happen once in a campaign.
Okay. Great. So this is the big thing we're leading up to then. So this is the big moment for that fight.
Exactly. Yeah. You can have multiple throughout your thing. There's a whole system for like pacing out when to introduce them
Mhm.
and how to deal with them. I think in the demo there's like 3, and in the full game right now there are 6. We did get the stretch goal, so I get to write more boss monsters. So I'm excited about
Amazing.
that.
More boss monsters. Love it. So we've kind of got the monsters. We're kind of going to generate the space station as we go through. What else is the station, the GM? What else are they going to be creating and looking to do to create a campaign and to run a game?
That is kind of the gist of it, really. You've got the
Mhm,
station, the monsters.
mhm.
You can meet NPCs throughout the space station.
Uh-huh, okay.
If you sit down at the table and you play this from zero, everything is kind of going to build up naturally as you play.
Uh-huh.
Um, Trying to think of how to put this. It really is like very improvisational.
Sure.
Um, so one of the set pieces that you can get, which are like rare events during play, is
Mhm,
a potentially friendly face. So you
mhm.
introduce an NPC when this happens, and that's a character in the world now,
Okay.
um, that has their own needs and wants, um, and goals,
Mhm.
and could totally, absolutely betray the player character, or could
Gas.
get ripped apart in front of them. Who knows? Whatever. Have fun with it. Um,
Okay, so just taking my
you're
notes,
not
make an adorable NPC murder in front of players. Got it. Okay.
absolutely. It's tragic. I
Mhm.
know I'm sitting here kind of like making light of this because it's fun, but
Yeah.
it's you can't. This is like a total tangent, but another one of my favorite things about this game is you
Mhm.
can play it like as I've written it, like
Mhm.
hardcore, scary, sad, like terror, but
Mhm.
also you can do the complete opposite. I ran a one shot recently that was like a sci-fi candy factory, and
Right.
all of the characters were like pieces of candy and like baked goods, and the boss was a giant evil mound of pink fudge. um
Amazing.
you
I
can do
didn't
whatever with this.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's the beauty of role-playing games. You can go wherever, just like
Hmm.
whatever if the table's feeling a certain way, you just sometimes you have to lean into it,
Hmm.
especially with horror and things. Because I think if the table's feeling a bit silly, sometimes there's nothing you can do as someone running
Sometimes
the game. So you've just got to
every
lean into it.
every game group has that one silly little guy, just one player who's an
Yeah.
absolute goofball. Usually it's me.
Okay.
um but yeah, I mean, another great thing about the genre is that horror and comedy work really well together.
Hmm.
um and I think some of that comes through in other parts of this game.
Sure.
But to digress, yeah, the
Yeah.
GM is going to be doing like NPCs. Um, there are also objectives, which is like the main narrative driving force. It's like the
Okay.
players will go, okay, we just woke up on this place. My first instinct is to get to comms or see if my girlfriend is still alive,
Hmm.
whatever. And you mark that down as an objective.
Hmm.
You roll some dice to see how many rooms you have to get through before you get to that objective.
Sure.
And then you know where to go. It's like I'm heading north or I'm heading down a sector, and I have to get through 8 rooms or 12 rooms before I can reach comms. And that
Hmm.
ninth room will be comms.
Sure.
Um, and usually by the time you're there, the GM has enough time to figure out, okay, here's the deal with comms. Here's
Hmm.
what's going to be going on in there and what we can kind of do to pull at some other strings.
Sure.
Um, so it can be fully improvised ahead of
Yeah.
time like that.
Amazing. So for people that are looking to, I mean, obviously, as you said, you can, as the GM, sit there and kind of create it in advance. So you can absolutely do that if you prefer to do that. But if somebody's looking to improvise and play it in the way you just described, what advice would you give them for running this game and playing it in that style?
Hmm. I'm trying to think of how to word this. Be okay. Get comfortable with pauses.
Mhm.
Because the players are going to be, you're going to be sitting there rolling on some tables. It takes less than a minute to do, but you've got
Mhm.
to roll on those tables and then figure out how to put it together in your head. It takes practice. It's not
Mhm.
instant. It's not super quick. It's a style of play that I understand like a lot of tabletop players may not be used to.
Mhm.
Um, and that's okay if it takes a
Yeah.
little bit of time. That's like time for people at the table to, they can be role playing together in the room while you're rolling dice for the next one.
That's true. Yeah.
um they can get up and get a drink if you like really need to take some time to think.
Mhm.
And I guess that in a way is kind of general TTRPG advice, like
Sure.
be okay with asking your players like, hey, I need a second here to put some stuff together.
Mhm.
um I think that's the biggest thing, is being okay with like slowing down the pace to roll some dice and figure out what you need to.
That's great advice. I think that's good. I think sometimes people feel a lot of pressure, like when you're running a game, to be constantly entertaining and constantly doing things. But I think, yeah, like you
Yeah,
say, pacing, it's okay to go, yeah, hang on a minute, or just give them something weird to look at in a room and have a conversation about, you
yeah,
know?
absolutely. Hey, you know what? While I'm rolling this table, you notice that there's a weird tube with a thing in it. Go look at that for a second.
Yeah. Amazing. Excellent. So I feel like we've talked through a lot of the game and a lot of things you can do. Are there any questions I should have asked you, or anything else you want to share or brag about the game before we wrap up today?
Um, I mean, I would love to brag.
Please do. This is your space and
I
time.
so this project is like, I've said it in other places. Like I did a whole blog post about this, but like
Hmm.
there's a lot of stuff about this project that has ended up being really, really personal, like
Hmm.
to me and to my wife Jam, who is also working on this project.
Hmm.
Um, this is our first game where I have done the art for it.
Okay.
I like haven't done art since high school, so coming back to it
Amazing.
and doing this was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Um, I'm so excited that it's coming together. It's fantastic how much we funded, and like the
Hmm.
every bit we gain past this is just going to help us continue to make cool stuff.
Yeah.
Got 10 days left when we're recording this, 9 when this goes up, I think.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to help make this thing even more awesome, then you know where to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Kickstarter link is in the show notes in the podcast or on screen if you're watching it live when we're playing here. So yeah, check it out and go and support. There's awesome stuff on there as well as the books. I think you've got like badges and there's like a cool collector's set. So
Yeah,
which I
there's
assume, yeah, I
yeah,
assume
there's
they're going
a
to be limited edition, are they? Or
yeah,
yeah.
there's a hardcore limited edition tier that basically comes with like all the add-ons and a couple extra
Hmm.
things. It's two alt cover hardcover editions.
Hmm.
It's a limited dice set that comes in a unique metal tin. There's a metal pin, there's a sticker set, there's an ID badge character sheet on a lanyard,
Hmm.
and it all comes in a
Nice.
nice like cool roll tuck box. You can
Nice.
get the hardcover editions on their own. You can get most of the things I just described as add-ons, in
Hmm.
addition to some fun collaboration products I did with my friends over at Plus One XP.
Yes.
We designed a beard balm and a lip balm.
Sure.
we we started talking about that like as a bit. Just like, wouldn't it be funny if we did a gore themed lip balm? That'd be funny, right? And then we did it.
And
Um,
it exists here.
it exists.
Amazing.
Yeah. There's going to be an expansion zine coming out like later on in the year. That'll be pay what you want digital,
Oh, amazing.
for everyone, and then there will be some print versions available. Um, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in there.
There definitely is. So as we've mentioned, there is that you can get now on the Kickstarter page. You can get like a preview kind of the game, so you could sit and kind of have a go to play it. So obviously the Kickstarter's happening now. What sort of time frame would people be looking at to kind of get their PDFs and their rewards?
We're looking at hitting August for a
Oh wow,
minimum of digital delivery. Ideally, we want to
amazing.
have digital delivered sooner than that,
Hmm.
and then have physicals around August or a little later. It depends on manufacturing and shipping
Sure.
times.
Hmm.
As we all know, shipping is a nightmare right now. So if there's a delay, it's probably going to be because of shipping. But pretty much everything else is like done. I have a few text changes to make, and then it'll be ready to go straight to layout.
Amazing.
And we already, as you saw in the demo, we have the layout style figured out, which is like the hardest part of doing layout.
Yes.
Is figuring out how the fuck do I want this to look. But that, like, the hard part is all done, so it'll be going into layout per maybe a month or two, and then we'll be ready to move on from there.
Amazing. That sounds really quick. So awesome to hear. If people want to keep in touch after the show and ask they were screaming at the screen and I wasn't asking the right questions and they want to ask it to you, where's the best place for them to get in touch and then chat to you about the project?
There's a number of ways you can get in touch with us. You've got our website, dinoberrypress.com. It has a contact form. There's our Twitter, twitter.com/dinoberrypress. And we have a Discord too. Which I forgot to send you the link for.
Is it on the website though?
I can add it to the website. It's bytes, bytes.rip/Discord. It's open. It's a really fun, chill group. That's a pretty good way to get in touch with us, I think, too.
Okay, amazing. Fantastic. Well, all those ways people can get in touch. So if there was a question you wanted to know about the game, feel free to get in touch that way. The final question I have for you, Nevyn, I ask everybody is, do you have any recommendations for indie games? The rules are it can't be a game that you've made, and it can't, of course, be Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Am I limited to one, or can I pick a few here? Can I rattle them off real quick?
Oh, I'll let you have a few. Go on.
All right, excellent. So the game that kind of like opened my eyes to indie RPGs is Black Mass by Will Yobst of Good Luck Press. They're a fantastic designer. That is a brilliant game, and Good Luck Press has a lot of really cool stuff. Space Between Stars by Viditya Valetti. A fantastic like space opera game. It is GM-less. It has a really cool system and pre-made characters. Highly recommend it. If it wasn't obvious from my shirt, Necronautilus by Adam Bass is a fantastic game. One of my favorites. And yeah, I think that's good. If I keep going, I'm just going to keep going.
No, that's fine. There's some really great recommendations there. And that's fantastic. Nevyn, thank you so much for your recommendations. Thank you so much for your time coming on talking. And congratulations for the Kickstarter. You're in space and everything's fucked. And I'm really excited to get my copy. And if this has been of interest to you, I'd recommend going on and backing, because the best way to support indie tabletop RPG creators is to buy their stuff.
It is true.
It is true. But that's all for this week. We'll be back next week with Not D&D with another game to introduce you to, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.